An 18-year-old college freshman is dead, shot and killed, and the man now accused of taking his life should never have been on American soil in the first place. This is Pulse America News, and I am Kundi. What you are about to hear is going to make your blood boil, because this is not just a tragedy. This is a failure, a massive, inexcusable, preventable failure of the system that was supposed to protect innocent Americans. A young man named Sheridan Gorman, just 18 years old, a freshman at a university in Chicago, full of dreams, full of potential, full of life, was shot and killed on Thursday. He had his whole future ahead of him, and now that future is gone forever. According to authorities, a Venezuelan national who entered the United States illegally has been arrested in connection with this devastating murder. And here is where the rage truly begins, because this individual was not some ghost who slipped through unnoticed. He was released into this country back in May of 2023 under the previous administration. Let that sink in. He was let in. And then just over 1 month later, in June of 2023, he was arrested in Chicago for shoplifting, caught in the system, known to law enforcement. And what happened next? He was released right back into the streets. Nobody stopped him. Nobody removed him. Nobody protected the people of Chicago from what was coming. And now an 18-year-old boy is dead. This is not politics. This is not a debate. This is a young man who will never come home. This is a family that is shattered. This is a mother and a father who buried their child because the system chose politics over protection and chose weakness over the safety of American citizens. And the worst part is, this story is not unique. This is happening over and over and over again across the United States of America. Families are being destroyed, lives are being ripped apart, and the people in power who were supposed to prevent this are too busy protecting their political image to protect innocent human beings. Now let us talk about what the governor of Illinois had to say, because when a moment like this demands courage, demands honesty, demands accountability, this governor could not even bring himself to acknowledge the dangerous reality that sanctuary city policies in his state helped create. He condemned the crime, yes. He called for accountability, yes. But he said nothing about the sanctuary policies that shielded this individual from being deported when he had the chance. Nothing. Instead, he attacked the current administration and accused them of politicizing the murder, a murder that he says never should have happened. Well, Governor, you are absolutely right. It never should have happened. And it would not have happened if your state had simply cooperated with federal immigration enforcement when this individual was first arrested. That is not politics. That is the truth. Meanwhile, across the country, something significant is happening. Immigration enforcement agents have begun deploying to airports nationwide, and predictably, the moment this news broke, certain politicians absolutely lost their minds. One senator took to the cameras with dramatic, emotional language, claiming that enforcement agents were bursting into schools, into churches, into hospitals, into courts, and even into the homes of ordinary Americans. He called it an outrage. He called it reckless. He called it out of control. But here is the question that every single American watching this deserves to have answered. Where is your proof? Where is even one verified example of agents storming into a church to make an arrest during a religious service? Where is one documented case of agents raiding an elementary school? Where is one confirmed instance of agents dragging someone out of a hospital bed without cause? Because the former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, a man who has spent his entire career in this field, issued a direct challenge. Give me one example, just one. And the answer, according to him, is that there is not one. There is not a single planned enforcement operation that targeted a church, a school, or a hospital in the way that this senator dramatically described. What there was, he explained, was one situation nationwide where agents were in active pursuit of a suspect who ran into an education center, and agents agents followed him in and made the arrest near the front door. That is called doing your job. That is called not letting a dangerous individual escape simply because he ran through a doorway. So why is this senator saying things that are not accurate? Why is he standing in front of cameras and describing scenes that, according to the man who actually runs these operations, simply did not happen? And here is where the consequences of these words become deadly serious. Because according to enforcement leadership, threats against immigration agents have risen by a staggering 8,000%. 8,000%. These are human beings. These are men and women with families. These are people who go to work every day to arrest murderers, known terrorists, child predators, violent gang members, and drug cartel operatives. And when powerful politicians stand up and paint them as monsters, as reckless, out-of-control agents invading sacred spaces, the hatred intensifies, the threats multiply, and eventually that hatred turns into real violence against real people who are just doing their jobs. These agents are being followed home. Their personal information is being posted online. And it is not just the agents themselves. Their spouses are being targeted. Their children are being targeted. Think about that for a moment. A child of an immigration agent is being threatened and harassed because their parent chose a career in public service. This is what certain political rhetoric is producing, and the people responsible for that rhetoric need to be held accountable for the dangerous environment they are creating.
Now, let us talk about the masks, because some in Congress are pushing to defund immigration enforcement unless agents agree to stop wearing masks during field operations. And the enforcement director has made his position absolutely clear. As long as threats remain at this historically dangerous level, as long as agents and their families are being identified and targeted, those masks are staying on. And honestly, can you blame him? These agents have badge numbers. They have identifiable uniforms. If someone genuinely needs to verify who an agent is, that information is accessible through proper channels. But broadcasting the faces of every single agent doing street operations in an environment where threats have exploded 8,000% would be reckless. It would put lives at risk. And no political pressure campaign is going to change that reality. Now, let us get back to the airports, because this is actually a brilliant and layered strategy that goes far beyond what the critics want you to believe. Yes, enforcement agents are now present at airports across the country. And yes, one of the goals is to help reduce those unbearable long security lines that American travelers have been suffering through. But the mission is much deeper than that. At these airports, agents are actively looking for criminals trying to move through the system. They are hunting for human traffickers. They are targeting individuals involved in child trafficking. They are watching for money smuggling. They are working directly alongside transportation security officers who are fellow members of the same department. This is not some hostile takeover of the airports. This is a coordinated law enforcement effort to make travel safer, move lines faster, and catch dangerous people who are trying to use our airports to move their criminal operations across state lines and international borders. And here is a fact that the critics will not tell you. The wait times are already dropping. Already, because having additional trained personnel helping manage the flow of passengers through security is producing results. Real results, not promises, not theories. Actual results that American travelers are experiencing right now. But let us zoom out for a moment, because there's a bigger picture here that demands your attention. There is a bill making its way through the process that would require proof of citizenship and voter identification. Simple, straightforward, the kind of basic verification that you need to enter a professional sporting event, the kind of identification that is required to board an airplane, to open a bank account, to buy certain medications, to do dozens of ordinary things that Americans do every single day. And yet, certain members of Congress are fighting against it, fighting against proving that the people voting in American elections are actually American citizens. Why? What is the argument against knowing who is voting? What is the democratic principle being protected by refusing to verify citizenship at the ballot box? And now we come to the most jaw-dropping part of this entire conversation, because some of the same politicians who are criticizing immigration enforcement are also refusing to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security unless their specific conditions are met. And what does the Department of Homeland Security do? It funds the agencies that protect American airports through transportation security. It funds the Coast Guard that patrols American waters and rescues American lives. It funds the agency responsible for defending American infrastructure from cyber attacks. It funds the Emergency Management Agency that responds when Americans are hit by hurricanes, floods, and natural disasters. These are not controversial programs. These are not political weapons. These are the basic, foundational services that every single American depends on for their physical safety and national security. And the argument being made is that unless enforcement agents take off their masks and make themselves easier targets for people who want to hurt them, none of these agencies should receive their full funding. That is the position. Let that register completely. Now, let us return to where we began, because everything in this conversation leads back to that 18-year-old boy in Chicago. It leads back to his family. It leads back to the moment that they received the phone call that no parent should ever receive. And it leads back to the simple, undeniable, heartbreaking truth that this did not have to happen. When this individual was arrested for shoplifting in June of 2023, that was the moment. That was the opportunity. That was the point at which the system could have acted, could have coordinated with federal immigration authorities, could have initiated the process that would have removed a threat from the streets of Chicago. Instead, he was released, and Sheridan Gorman paid for that decision with his life. Over the past decade, hundreds of families across America have buried their children after they were killed by individuals who were in this country illegally and who had prior encounters with law enforcement that should have triggered deportation. Hundreds of families, mothers and fathers who held their children one last time and then watched as they were lowered into the ground. And in every single one of those cases, somewhere along the line, there was a moment where the system had the chance to act and chose not to, chose sanctuary policies over safety, chose political alignment over protection, chose to look away rather than cooperate with the federal authorities whose entire job is to prevent exactly these kinds of tragedies. There was a moment in a recent State of the Union address when a sitting president asked members of Congress to stand and affirm a simple statement that the safety of American citizens is the first and primary duty of the American government, that protecting Americans must come before any other political consideration. And certain members of Congress sat down. They refused to stand up. They refused to affirm that basic commitment to the people they were elected to serve. And the question that every American voter needs to be asking those members right now is simply this: why? Why could you not stand up for American safety? What is the principle that prevented you from affirming that the people you represent deserve to be protected? What is more important to you than the lives of the citizens of this country? This is Pulse America News. I am Kundi, and the answer to that question matters more than almost any other question in American politics right now. Because until politicians across the board are willing to put the safety of American citizens ahead of every other consideration, families will keep getting that phone call. Parents will keep burying their children, and young men like Sheridan Gorman, 18 years old, a freshman with a future, will keep dying for absolutely no reason at all. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop demanding better from the people you elect to protect you.